right there. Oh man. Yo, what's up guys? Happy, what weekend is this? Happy Labor Day weekend. Hope your summer was awesome. Beside me, we have the tastiest, freshest shelf you've ever seen. It's supposed to look like a pink glazed donut. I even bought sprinkles to eventually put on top. I was gonna originally do epoxy and color it and have it dripping over the edges, but that proved to be a lot more difficult than I thought it was gonna be. So I ended up just making this bad boy all out of wood. It's hanging on a French cleat, so it makes it really easy to take on and off the wall. You could do blue frosting, maple frosting, coconut frosting, pretty much any frosting you want on this shelf. But I like pink because it tastes pretty good. What's perfect about this project is you can tackle this weekend, have fun doing it, and hang it up come Monday. So yeah, this is the shelf, and now I'm gonna show you how I made it. So say it with me. Let's get after it, baby. Shoo.
To start a fun project off like this, you gotta start off with a fun dance. As you can see, I've been practicing. To start this project off, I used a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and it was 5/8 inch thick. Immediately, I cut it to 6 feet in length since my shelf would reach a final size of 6 feet long. A little remix on the table saw there. With that 6-foot sheet of plywood that I just cut, I cut 3 strips. 1 strip at 10 inches wide and 2 strips at 6 inches. The 10-inch strip would be used as the top of my shelf, and the 2 6-inch strips would be used for the front and sides. I then set my table saw to 45 degrees and cut the 45-degree angles on the front-facing edges and the 10-inch side strips for the shelf. So what you should have is a front-facing 6-foot piece with 2 45-degree angles on either side, and then 2 10-inch pieces of 6 inches in width with 1 45-degree angle on each of those sides. I glued and screwed those to the 6-foot piece, and that would make up the base of my shelf. I then took my 10-inch by 6-foot piece and glued and nailed that on the top. I wanted this to be a nice, clean, sturdy, and removable way to put a shelf on a wall, so I decided to use a French cleat. So I cut a 2.5-inch French cleat, which was obviously straight on one side or flat on one side with a 45-degree angle on the other side, which would give you that nice French cleat that would hook into another 45-degree strip that I'd put on the wall. I nailed and glued that on the back side of the shelf. So originally I intended to just draw the glazing or the frosting design on the front and sides of my shelf that I just built, and then I would use silicone and epoxy resin and end up filling it and making it look like a donut with pink frosting, this and that, and it just was not working. So I completely abandoned that idea, actually abandoned the whole project. It's now sitting in my shop, and had to rebuild that shelf for everything you just saw, and then go ahead and start a new idea. It was a little frustrating at first, but then I realized this was definitely the better way to go. So I took a sheet of scrap 1/4-inch plywood I had lying around my shop and cut that into a 6-inch strip, and then proceeded to draw my frosting design on it, and then cutting it out with my jigsaw. This worked out really well since I just had to cut it once, and I ended up with 2 pieces of frosting, 1/4-inch ply, to use for my shelf. I sanded it all down at 220 grit just to kind of prep it to handle with it, and I didn't want to get any slivers, and I would eventually want this to be pretty smooth at the end anyhow. I made sure to cut the edges that connected on the edges or corners of my shelf with 45-degree angles, so when they butt up it would be clean. And also, since this is made of two pieces on the front, that the two designs of the frosting matched up, so I cut those to match. I did a dry fit just to make sure everything worked out before I painted it and glued it down. I then went ahead and did my final sanding on the frosting bits before I painted it, using 220 and 320, and just making sure those curved edges of the frosting were nice and smooth. Then it was paint time. I used a pink spray paint, and I'll have that in the description below. And then as that was drying and curing, I went ahead and sanded the rest of the shelf because I knew it was going to be harder to sand after the fact and after I glued down the frosting. I used a Gorilla Glue construction adhesive. It worked very well for this application, and it is very, very strong. I waxed the rest of the shelf because I knew there was a chance that I might get a little overspray when I painted the rest of it, and this would just make it easier to take that paint off if there was overspray at all. I then cut the top of the shelf, which was 10 inches and 1/4 of that same 1/4-inch plywood, and then I again used the construction adhesive to glue that to the top of the shelf. This is me struggling to change the bit on my router. I hadn't done it in a long time, but there you go. I think it's good to go. I used that round over bit to round off the front facing edge and the side edges of the shelf. Any cracks or gaps I use some wood filler in before doing a final sand to make it all nice and smooth, to make it look like a donut as much as possible. I then took it outside, taped it all up, and prepared it for the final coats of pink spray paint. Always be sure you wear a mask. It's just good habit. Protect those lungs, baby. Before the very final coat of spray paint, I sanded it all down using 320 grit sandpaper just to remove any bumps or abnormalities in the paint, and then I put on that final coat of spray paint. Starting to remove the tape, I realized how cool this thing was going to look. Doesn't that just look delicious? Like I said, I knew I was going to have a little overspray, so I used a chisel and scraped off the paint and then sanded the rest off with 320 grit sandpaper. I wanted to mount this in my office, so I measured 2 feet off the ground, found the studs, and then mounted the other strip of French cleat to my wall. After hanging it, I did the final coat of wax, and then it was done. And now I've got this really cool looking donut shelf. I'd take a bite out of it right now if I could. What's awesome about this is you can put your sneaker collection on, anything you want to show off a little bit, and it now has somewhere to sit that looks totally different than anything you probably have in your house. It's fun, people give you compliments on it, and yeah, you can put whatever you want on this bad boy. I hope you guys like this video. I had a blast making it. Please like and subscribe. I'm gonna keep pumping out cool videos like this, and yeah, as always, thanks for watching and hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one. All right, see you guys.